this is Terry from Fabric Junction, and today we're going to make a simple wall hanging or lap quilt out of the fabric called Out of This World by Northcott. It is a glow-in-the-dark fabric that is great for any space enthusiast. We started with a panel that is 24 inches wide, and then I trimmed it down to 38. Now you can leave it longer if you so choose. It was just easier for me to work with at 38 inches in length. And how I did that is I actually folded it in half and then in a quarter, laid it out on my mat and cut at 19. So that gave me 38 inches long. And for expediency, I've already started my sewing, but we'll show you how to cut the border. It came with this beautiful border fabric. There is 4 repeats on here, and I made the decision that I wanted, like the quilt that we've already done, I wanted the orange against my panel. This one was done with a traditional border where we added a piece left and right, top and bottom. Today what I'm going to show you is just a little different twist to your border. But once again, I wanted the orange next to my panel, so I cut with that in mind. So then when I cut each piece, I take my straight edge and I line up the 1/4 inch line on this seam, where I'm going to have my seam, right on that strip of orange. And I trim wherever the 1/4 inch is. And as you can see, I cut as long as I can, and I keep moving down to make some nice long cuts. I cut kind of slow when I do this. I get lined up and I cut and I make sure my straight edge stays on that line. This gives me my 1/4 inch seam and puts me right up next to that orange, and that's where I want to be. Now this side, I haven't decided how much of this I want to use, and I can make that decision once the quilt is quilted. But right now, I want to add my borders next to the orange. And I started sewing to save time, but to start, there we go. What I need you to do is take your border with the orange and line it up with the top of the panel. And you can see there's a seam across here and there's one here. And stitch down that border until you decide to stop. Don't go clear to the end of your panel. Now I'm stopping a good 6 inches away so that you can see I haven't closed it. Once I have that one done, we're actually going to work backwards, what I always think, because I want to work there, but I don't. So I grab my next corner of my panel and I add my border. And as you can see, this one's going to be really long because it is a short part, but that's fine. I can cut that off later. And I sew to the end. You go to your next, go to the other end, and this is what it looks like every time you add a new border. You've got this, and you have a straight line. So, I go to my corner, I grab my border fabric, I make sure that I've got my orange is lined up, and I sew from this end clear to the other end. Okay, once you get to the end, go back to the one that you had stopped. And now we're going to finish sewing to the end. Now we have all of our borders on. You can go to the ironing board and press, but I'll open it up, and now you can see the effect that this style of adding a border gives to your quilt or your wall hanging, which creates a great look and a great effect for a quilt or a block. It's a wonderful technique just to do on your blocks also. Now that this is this far, it's ready for my quilter. So once my quilter has it finished and it comes back to me, because this one is going to be a wall hanging, I'll be putting lights in this particular quilt. And to do that, I use long reach. I'll show you, pretend that these are my layers, and I use a little tool. This is my eyelet tool, and it creates little bitty holes in layers of fabric to set eyelets. Well, I'm not going to set an eyelet. All I'm going to do is create a hole, and I'll pick out exactly where I want to put my lights, and then I just take it, use a hammer, pound, and you create some little holes here. Oh, can't get them quite lined up, but there it is. Some nice little holes that the lights fit in. The lights I use is a battery pack of 20 lights. They're LED, so they do not get hot on the fabric, and you just push them through the hole. To protect the hole, I use fray check right around the edge just to keep it from getting any bigger and to keep the threads intact when I decide to launder the wall hanging. The other thing I do when I make a wall hanging, I actually add a sleeve. Now the quilt here was made as a lap quilt, so it doesn't have a sleeve on it. But to add a sleeve, before you bind, this one is already bound, before you bind, take a piece of fabric, and it can be any width, but you want to make sure it's big enough to go over whatever kind of rod or pole that you decide you want to use in it. Fold it in half, so there's your raw edges, tuck your ends in, be a little bit shorter than your actual wall hanging, take the raw edge and pin it to the top, and then bind. So you'll want to add this before you bind it. Once you have it in there, come back and do a little whip stitch to secure it on this side. And you have your sleeve to hang them. Because I'm putting lights in mind, I've also decided that my lights will stay just in the center panel. So I won't have any lights in my outer border. So with that in mind, I need a place that will house the battery pack. So with the lights all over here, what I do is I make a little pocket. And again, I just take a scrap piece of fabric. I've sewn 2 sides. I have a raw edge, and before I bind it, I pin it where I'd like my pocket. So that way I have a place to put my battery pack when I hang my wall hanging. Hopefully you enjoy the wall hanging quilt today. Very simple, a beautiful line of fabric, like I said, from Northcott, and it glows in the dark, that you could make up in no time for your favorite space person. Check out our kits on junctionfabric.com. Thank you.